Let's get to the news. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the news. Biggest story of the year by far. Usually, as you know, I'll do a regular roundup session, just kind of recapping stories from the past week. But I absolutely had to do a special session just to understand this whole FBI raid on Donald Trump's home. So this is just a massive, just earth-shattering global event, historical event. So let's dive into it. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, and I'm going to try to pull it together in a coherent and digestible way. So look, we'll start with kind of what happened. We'll move to the aftermath of what happened, get into motive or potential motive, mention some stuff that we don't know or that's still pending or outstanding, and then I'll kind of opine a little bit in terms of what I think comes next, or what happens from here. So first thing, what the hell actually happened? So FBI on Monday, August the 8th, at about 6 a.m. this past week, they raided Mar-A-Lago. And Trump and his family, they were not home. This was apparently over a National Archives request that Trump's team was already apparently complying with. They had provided, 15 boxes of documents back in January of this year, I think it was, that Trump had brought with him when he left the White House in January of last year. So provided those documents again in boxes about a year later. He did, right? And as part of the FBI's raid, I guess they just wanted to, I don't know, both double check to see if there's anything else and take whatever else they could. So as part of their raid this past Monday, they took over 20 some odd documents, and I have the search warrant that we'll pull up later in this video. Trump's Secret Service and lawyers were told that they could not be present during the search. Okay. Some, but not all of the security cameras on the premises were turned off. So I don't think there was any recordings of the actual event itself in terms of, 45's office and all that. But the premises, I think, still has some security footage. Apparently, they searched Melania's wardrobe during the raid. So that's interesting. It seems like unnecessary because when you look at the search warrant, it doesn't really specify that. It's more like Trump and his staff. But in any case, I'm not sure why they would be interested in women's clothing or whatever. This is the first time that this kind of event has ever happened in U.S. history. No former president has ever had the FBI raid his home. It's never happened. They broke into his safe. We know that much. He had secured it apparently per their order, and they broke in anyway and took all these files. As I said, roughly 20 to 30 different batches of files and data. Trump came out and said, "Hey, let's see a search warrant. I support the public release of the search warrant. So nothing to hide on his part." We know that the raid was authorized by a judge, Judge Reinhart, Bruce Reinhart, who used to work for Epstein, apparently. And so just a quick little note on here. This is the guy, Bruce Reinhart. He has two big claims to fame, I guess. The first is that he represented a former Democratic congressman investigated by the Bureau, i.e. the FBI, for putting his mistress on congressional payroll. Okay, so he represented that guy. And then sometime later, he goes from prosecuting Epstein to somehow or another resigning from that role as the U.S. attorney back in 2008. And then Epstein hired him literally the next day. And then that guy, Bruce Reinhart, went on to represent Epstein's pilot, schedule, and alleged, let's say, human slave, who ended up all getting immunity from federal prosecution. So he went from prosecuting, Epstein and his dealings and such to actually representing him. God knows how that happened, but that could be an interesting story to uncover. So Epstein linked, Democrat aligned, seemingly politician turned judge, is the one who actually ended up doing this one. And so, and then Trump came out. He had a truth, I guess is what you would call it, on Truth Social, and he says, "Look, everything that they took from my office, my Mar-A-Lago office, it was already declassified. And number two, that they didn't have to seize anything. He actually claims that they didn't even request any files, right? Because he had provided, as I mentioned, files back in like January of this year. So as far as he's concerned, the job is done. They have everything that they need. He claims, and there's no evidence to suggest otherwise, that they didn't even ask him for any additional documents. They just showed up, gave a really short heads up. I think that's Secret Service or maybe the attorneys or both, and just like began to search, kind of rummage through. And so Trump's big claim here is we have the ability to declassify it, and I think that's true because what I've been seeing is like some legal analysts, they're basically citing a Supreme Court precedent from back in the 80s, like supporting that claim. This is like common practice for a sitting United States president to be able to declassify basically whatever they want writ large, and two, they didn't need to seize anything, as he says. They could have just basically just asked for it. They could have had it any time they wanted, he says, without playing politics and breaking into the building. It was in a secured storage with an additional lock put on as per their request. They could have had it any time they wanted, and that includes long ago. All they had to do was ask. So what we're seeing here is a massive, massive abuse of power, the weaponization of the state apparatus to go after political opponents. Very much, I think Trump called it a banana republic type of behavior. He was actually the one to break the story, which is fascinating as well. And then Trump kind of ends his truth here by saying, hey, the bigger problem is what are they going to do with the 33 million pages of documents, many of which are classified, that Obama took to Chicago? And not to mention Hillary Clinton. He's referenced her in a kind of a different statement before, not too long ago, who basically deleted classified information, transferred, etc., and was never prosecuted, never charged with anything. So it seems to be a bias, if you would, in terms of the truth and let's say justice. Moving on to kind of the aftermath. So, after this happened, you had even non-Republican, non-GOP, non-right-wing people like Andrew Cuomo, the former kind of disgraced governor now of New York, and Andrew Yang, failed presidential candidate, but still kind of playing like the middle ground in terms of this like third-party movement that he's been working on. Even they came out and criticized the raid. Even I think there was one critic as well of Trump who was like, this is a bridge too far. So that happened almost immediately afterwards. And then after a couple of days, Merrick Garland, the attorney general, comes out and says, yeah, I personally approved of this raid. And he didn't take any questions. And then he walks out of the press conference in the White House. He looks like he's almost being held hostage throughout this video. I don't think he wanted to be there. But anyway, he says that he approves of it. FBI Director Chris Wray, he came out and said, hey, we're getting a lot of threats online, the FBI is. And I found it amusing. He called the threats deplorable and dangerous. So that was kind of funny. Like the fact that he would choose deplorable is interesting. But I don't discount what he's saying. There's a story that we'll come to of a Cincinnati guy as part of this aftermath, basically attacking an FBI headquarters in Cincinnati. So I think those online threats that Chris Wray is alluding to are actually credible, and they are obviously bad and dangerous. Some more in terms of aftermath. Trump came out literally within a number of hours, and he kind of released a campaign-style ad video, a couple minutes long. I think it's been translated in multiple languages. Really, really high-quality production, just saying, look, we are a failing nation. And he does everything but say that he's going to be, running for president yet again, right? Announcing his third campaign for the presidency. Really, really high quality video. He has another one after this that's a bit shorter as well. But what's fascinating about this is that Trump almost seemed prepared for it. He almost seemed like he knew that, the weaponization of the state was coming, that his political enemies would come after him. He's being investigated in Manhattan, maybe Georgia, I think, as well. DOJ, it's only a matter of time before they try to ride the January 6th wave and come after him as well. And so he seemed like he was prepared to make this everything but an announcement. It was so close to announcing, but not quite. Really, really good campaign-ish video. And then the aftermath also got kind of juicy because support for the guy spiked. He's already the most popular figure on the right. But some polling data came out saying that Americans are actually going to be more likely to vote in the midterms after the FBI's raid of Mar-A-Lago, right? 70% of likely voters saying that the raid has increased their motivation to vote this November. So that's actually huge if that's legit. Not only that, but there's some outrage, let's say, by GOP and independents, which are really, particularly independents. GOP is going to vote GOP, but independents are really the main kind of like battleground, if you would, in terms of winning elections. And so they're really saying, look, this is unacceptable. This is not a reasonable step to achieve justice, especially over the pretense of like, hey, you didn't return all the documents that we, wanted you to return, even though he kind of did. So interesting. So 84% of Republicans and then 58.6% of independents saying that, hey, this was unreasonable. This was unreasonable. This is the type of bullying that they accused Donald Trump of. And Donald Trump was, he spoke big. He had a big talk, but he was very timid when it came to using power and force. Like he was actually, I would say, too timid even. A great example of that is, what's that dude? Josh Hawley, I think he said. He was like, yo, you should send in, the troops basically to quell the 2020 protests that are happening all over the country. And Trump said no. He's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to weaponize the state. I'm going to try as much as possible to, ride it out. So he's been a meek and mild president in many ways, even though he talks very, very tough. He's very reserved, I would actually say, but not so with the Biden Justice Department. As soon as they get in, man, they're gonna be banging down that hammer, so to speak. A little more in terms of aftermath. Apparently, Trump's son came out and said, "Look, we are shattering fundraising records." So support has just kind of gone through the roof, right, in the aftermath following the raid. Who knows what those exact numbers are? I haven't actually seen them. It may take a while for them to sort of compile it. Maybe they released it on like a monthly basis or what have you. So we'll find out kind of more. You had one part of the aftermath, Hillary Clinton kind of mocking the whole situation, right? She's selling merch, basically saying, hey, butter emails, right, to mock Donald Trump, who's basically saying, yo, she did all this with emails. What's going on in terms of investigations or FBI raiding her home? Has never happened, never will happen, right? So, this is just gloating, right? When you rig the system and can gloat about it and you know that you're above the law. She's in the same category as Epstein and what's his name? Hunter Biden, right? Untouchables, right? The elite ruling class. And so nothing to fear. She can even gloat. Some more crazy aftermath. It wasn't even just the event itself. It was the details after the event and the ridiculous kind of aftermath and developments following it. So apparently the FBI has been on a roll this past week. They actually have been serving several Pennsylvania lawmakers with subpoenas. Hey, we need information, we need records, etc. Basically implying that they're getting investigated by the feds. Much of this seems to be around the 2020 election and their legal challenge, because what happened was they had sent electors. They were one of like a handful or so of states who sent electors. Yeah, so it was also, what is this? Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, and such. So I guess that's a crime. I don't know what's happening in this country anymore. I guess you can't send an alternate slate of electors if you don't, believe in or kind of certify the results of the 2020 election, as I guess they didn't. And then they took Scott Perry's phone. So he's part of the Freedom Caucus, or I guess a founding member or a leader in it. And I guess he was also very much against the 2020 election supposed result, or what he claims was the apparent result. And so there's a lot of movement right now happening on the FBI side. I think they even are investigating now the Southern Baptist Convention, or whatever it's called, which is like the biggest religious group in the country right now. So FBI has just been on a roll. I mean, they're going after everybody. Federal Congress members, state level Congress members, former president of the United States, religious groups. I mean, you name it. The FBI is just like shifting gears right now and just rolling over everybody. It would seem. More aftermath. So I think I alluded to it already. A gunman got into an altercation, I guess I would say, and his life was ended when he went after an FBI office. He was apparently a Navy guy, a veteran, 42 years old, prominent on Truth Social. He had a top secret security clearance, and he heard about what happened at Mar-A-Lago and decided he wanted to take matters into his own hands, and made a very fatal decision, cost him his life. So that's been a big kind of national news story and part of the crazy aftermath of this whole scenario. Look, three quick things on this, just from my standpoint. Number one, you don't ever fight a battle that you don't stand a chance of winning. I'm sure this is probably in like Sun Tzu's Art of War. I can't remember all those quotes, but I don't see why any person, right, would fight a pointless battle and throw their life away. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight fire with water. You fight fire, with something else. You don't fight fire with oil, right? I think what is it? Water, sand, and probably like removing oxygen are probably the best ways to fight fire, right? You don't fight fire with fire. It's just a stupid statement. So number one, I think that's the biggest kind of thing. You don't fight a pointless battle that you're sure to lose. Number two, you gotta find like a way to find meaning outside of politics. People, like, don't get me wrong, I cover politics, right, with this channel a lot, but it's one of those things where, like, this kind of goes back to why I took a break earlier this year for a while. Is it like you got to take a breather, you got to touch some grass, you got to go, do something else, say hi to humans out there, because you're gonna drive yourself insane. You got to have a support system, go to a church, you got to have someone that you love more than, even the president or the people who run the show. You gotta have something that animates you outside of the day-to-day stuff, because it can actually drive you crazy. And this guy was actually on Truth Social, and I think he just went crazy. He just went over the deep end, and that's it. He just snapped, people, this is it. He was calling people to arms, and decided he wants to flush his life down the toilet here. And so that's the second thing. You got to find like hope outside of whatever's happening in Washington or in your state capital. Get a life, people. Seriously, get a life. And then number three is you have to understand the fight that you're playing here. Like, we're in this, and we have to understand this is a long battle. This is a long war. We gotta think about this as playing the long game. And we don't wrestle with flesh and blood anymore, right? This is information warfare, the battlefield of the mind type of stuff. Memes are how we win. Sharing information, reading information, processing information, going against the narrative. Mocking, ridiculing, right? Satire, humor, stories, right? Humanization, right? We have to do psychological warfare to win this. Spiritual warfare is how we win this, not through this flesh and blood kind of battle. So this guy didn't understand the whole concept of like this generational warfare and playing the long game, and decided he wanted to go out with a bang. But unfortunately, it's more like a whimper, very ineffective. Anyway, moving on. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is another thing that happened this week. Firebrand in Congress. She drafted articles of impeachment against the AG Garland. From what I heard, I watched what's it called, Jack Posobiec on Timcast yesterday. Apparently, he thinks that this has a high chance of actually succeeding. It's not just like some symbolic gesture, so that's good. It's good to see that there's some steam behind this potentially. So assuming all goes well in the November elections, this will probably be, like a thing. And AG Garland probably took that calculus into effect when he made his decision. As long as he can get his vengeance or his whatever the case might be, his agenda fulfilled, who cares if he stays all 4 years or just does a year or two. I don't think he would mind. Anyway, so that should be an interesting kind of set of developments to really to clear the air with this whole impeachment situation. Let's talk a little bit more about like motive. Okay. So apparently Garland, he was nominated by Obama back in 2016 for the Supreme Court. And this was after the former Supreme Court justice had passed away. It was an interesting scenario because the Senator Mitch McConnell, he was basically like, no, like we're not gonna do that. We're gonna wait until like the next president kind of wins the election, and then we'll have that person follow the process of nominating someone for the Supreme Court. So it was actually a big deal from a historical standpoint, because like I would actually argue, if that had gone through, there's a reasonable chance that Roe v. Wade would not have been overturned this year, right? So just think about that. It's just like a historical thing. The balance on the court. I think Roe v. Wade, I could be wrong, it got overturned by like one vote, So just that one single decision by one person was enough to, potentially flip it had things gone otherwise. But anyway, Antonin Scalia was the one who passed away. And then McConnell was like, look, even before Obama had named Garland, Mitch McConnell declared that any appointment by the sitting president will be null and void. Right, the next Supreme Court justice should be chosen by the next president to be elected later that year. And then he said, of course, the American people should have a say in the course direction. It's the president's right, and it's the Senate's right, constitutional right, to act as a check on the president and withhold his consent. So one theory in terms of why Garland is being weaponized this way is that this is basically revenge against the Republicans for denying him the Supreme Court, the sweetest, highest job and sort of, court in the land. That's one theory. I don't know how I feel about that. I think that could be a factor, but I don't think that's the overriding sort of operandi. The bigger theory in terms of why this is happening is it goes back to the actual investigation itself. So good news. This was released on Friday, so the 12th of August. The search warrant got leaked. So shout out to, I think it was New York Times, maybe Washington Post, and also the man himself that I already mentioned, Jack Posobiec with Human Events, who actually leaked the document. So just real quick, they're trying to get Trump on three things. There's U.S. Code 793, 2071, and 1519. So real quick, 793 is about espionage. That's about sharing defensive secrets with other state actors, and that one can get you up to 10 years in prison. Okay. 2071, that one's about basically mishandling records, and that can get you up to 3 years in prison and bar you from public office. And then 1519 is also about mishandling records like 2071, but that one can only get you up to 2 years in prison, not 3. And I don't think you can get barred from office under 1519. So that's what they're trying to hit them with, one of these three. In their mind, getting one of the first two is probably ideal. Because if you think about it, 793, if you get this guy in prison for 10 years, I love me some Trump, but 10 years from now, if he were to go to prison and be in, I think that basically will obviously bar him from public office. But also, as much as I love Trump, even with his currently sharp brain, he'll be as good as Joe Biden in terms of the office if he's still alive in 10 years. even the age is going to have its effect, and I don't think 10 years he'll be as sharp as he can be. And then I don't know the law that well. Maybe you can't run for office if you've been convicted of a crime and serve your 10 years, but that would also be basically it would effectively bar him from public office, I think, if they were to hit him with 793. And then 2071 would actually bar him from office, so he can get up to 3 years in prison. And then there's that, like the statute or whatever or description says that he would be barred. And so I think that one's right here, right? It makes it a crime, blah 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 blah, to do all these things with documents. And then here's the kicker, right? In addition, right, if you're in office, you have to forfeit the office, and then if you're not in office, like, you're disqualified. So, like, this is the kicker. They can even use this to get him out. I don't know if he's convicted. I don't know if you can be convicted during your term, but if he is, then he would be ousted. So how's that, right? In terms of a loophole, this is like what they're like hyenas in the Lion King. They're just salivating over that pig. If you remember that scene in Lion King, they're just hyenas salivating over this. I think this is what they're really going for. So that's the first thing to highlight in this search warrant. The second thing to highlight around this search warrant is that it's like hella broad. So look at this item number C right here. So any government and or presidential records created between January of 2017 and January of 2021, meaning anything that he did basically while in office, they can take it. Right? It's just crazy. So the document is basically just like, we can do whatever we want, and we can charge you under like a very broad set of very penalizing laws. So that's the situation. This is what I'm leaning towards in terms of the actual motive, more so than revenge. Don't get me wrong. People are human, just like Clarence Thomas. I'm sure like there was a sense of revenge, when he helped overturn Roe v. Wade and stand up against the woke tyranny that we're seeing in this country. Don't get me wrong, that there's a sense of justice in like obstructing Joe Biden's agenda, because Joe Biden and the Democrats were pretty bad to him back in the day when he was like trying to become nominated and such. So, but again, I don't think that's the overriding factor. I think revenge and being able to block him from office satisfies the Democratic agenda more broadly. Okay. So let's talk just to kind of begin to kind of wrap it up a little bit. Oh yeah, I actually forgot to mention one of the interesting salient points here is this whole like nuclear thing. So going back to the espionage comment, so part of the claim is that, oh, what if there's like nuclear codes or nuclear secrets basically in these documents, and there's some evidence that Trump was sharing this with like I don't know Iran or Russia or some other state actor. That's part of the allegation. Apparently, there's like 2 unnamed sources that are affiliated with like the Washington Post that are saying that. I'm skeptical of this one, and part of the reason is if you go back to this great Scott Adams post, he has this sick post. He says, if you believe Trump squirreled away some nuclear secrets at Mar-a-Lago and refused to return them because you heard that Washington Post say that 2 anonymous sources that CNN can't confirm told him it was true, look, I got a bridge to sell you. And here's some useful context. So he just goes down the list here: Russian collusion, host, Steele dossier, grabbing the steering wheel of the beast, et cetera, Hunter Biden laptop, overfeeding. Like, he just goes through the list of all the dirt that the most politically persecuted man in human history has had to deal with. So we know like the nature and the tone of our enemy here, and kind of what they're doing to this guy. So I don't believe the whole nuclear secrets thing. I think that's stupid. Let me speak a little bit in terms of what we don't know. So as I understand it, there's conflicting information around a couple of different points. One is whether or not they handed Trump's lawyers a copy of the search warrant. So Trump's team had basically said no. Garland, in his little presser, where he looks like he's been held hostage this week, says yes, we did. So TBD in terms of what the truth is there. It's unknown as to whether or not FBI planted evidence while they were there. So as I mentioned, there was no Secret Service agent of Trump's or Trump's lawyers present during the search and the raid, which means these assholes had the ability to do whatever they wanted, to be honest with you. And so I think in 1 or 2 speeches, Trump has basically alleged this past week that it's possible that they could have planned something on him. So we'll see. I don't think DOJ or whatever has kind of spoken on that. Of course, they wouldn't. And then 3 is obviously this commentary around nuclear weapons and whether or not there's some documentation around that. Again, sounds like just smoke and mirrors, not reality. And then 4th is most recently is where's the affidavit? So I'm recording this on a Saturday. The warrant came out yesterday or was leaked yesterday. And the affidavit has not come along with it. That would basically be the so what or the why behind the search. And it's also like, what is it called? The seal that says like, we believe this to be like truthful and all that stuff and accurate. So folks are still waiting for that part to come out. All right. And then let's wrap this up by just talking about what comes next. So the first thing is obvious, which are that charges are going to come against Donald Trump. So he's being investigated. As far as what we can see from this past week, the investigation seems to be bullshit politics, honestly. Just meant to continue the so-called witch hunt of these past number of years. But like when you're committed to madness, you're committed to madness all the way through. So they're gonna take whatever charges they can drum up here and put together some case against the guy. It's gonna come sooner than later. We'll see. The only real question seems to be like, when does Trump actually announce that he's going to run for president again? Like formally this time, not like alluding to it or teasers or whatever. And the understanding is that if he does announce before the charges come, my understanding is that he's basically immune from them, or at least he has some protection from a legal standpoint from like those charges. And that includes state and federal. So yeah, New York, / Manhattan, Georgia with the whole Raffensperger situation, and then the DOJ. So like this article was like, as for the Justice Department, it remains unclear whether or not, to what extent, Trump is under investigation. This was back in July though. So just a month later, we have confirmed he is under investigation. It is criminal. And Jack Posobiec says charges are coming. So I'll take his word for it because the man has sources, and his receipts have been like extremely good over the months and years. So, all right, that's all I have for today. Stay up, pray up, read up, wake up, and I'll keep you posted. Thanks for listening to today's rundown. If you liked what you heard, please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.